Hello, my name is Martha Valencia, and today I will be presenting about differentiation for my literacy inquiry, and I chose to do a focus on diversity. So what exactly is differentiated instruction? According to the article that I chose as one of my references, titled Differentiated Instruction Making Informed Teacher Decisions, differentiated instruction allows all students to access the same classroom curriculum by providing entry points, learning tasks, and outcomes tailored to the student's learning needs. So why is differentiated instruction important? I could read this to you, but I think as teachers, we all know that it's super important so that students can learn and have their needs met in the best way possible. So one of the articles that I used as my reference stated that research gathered after studying groups of students whose instruction was differentiated during their literacy block showed that from kindergarten through third grade, students made greater gains in word reading and reading comprehension when their teachers differentiated instruction using small, flexible learning groups during center or station time, as compared to those students whose teachers provided only high quality but primarily whole class instruction. So there's research that proves the importance of differentiation and how it affects our students. This quote down here that says, "The more children read about other characters and their situations, the more understanding and tolerant of others they will become." So this applies to the importance of differentiated instruction in the literacy classroom specifically. And what I think it refers to is providing an ample amount of literature that's diverse in content for students of all backgrounds, cultures, beliefs, etc. So when you're differentiating instruction, it's super important to know your student in order to meet their needs. And in order to differentiate literature and literacy instruction in the classroom, it's important to acknowledge other aspects of students. So get to know students, what's their culture like, what are some things that are kind of central to their culture, or what is their family life like, what role does family play in their culture, and one of the examples that I chose to use for my literacy synthesis was an article, which is a bilingual article called Diciendo Cuentos, Telling Stories, Learning from and About the Community Cultural Wealth of Latina Mamas through Latino Children's Literature. It is a fairly new article, but it caught my attention because it talks about Latino family, and of course I identify as Latina, and I am first-generation college student. I was an English language learner, so that's why I have such a focus on diversity and the importance of bilingual literacy. So this article, it explains the importance of family and culture in Latino students, and it talks about how teachers can incorporate family and culture into the classroom to facilitate differentiation, So teachers were able to notice that family is super important in Latino culture. So although the mothers of these Latino students felt like they shouldn't go to their children's school because they didn't understand the language, and it's not that they're uninterested in their students learning, it's that language barrier really is just, it kind of sets a bigger barrier for them to communicate with their kids and to communicate with the teachers. And so these teachers, instead of just letting the families not be part of their children's education, they decided to create this program during which they had these pláticas literarias, which translates to literary or literature conversations. So what they would do is they would use Latino children's literature for the students, and they would also have the mothers of these students read these books and then kind of share their thoughts on it. And it was a way to bring the families together with the students and to bring out the culture of these students. And it resulted in the students becoming more engaged in learning and the mothers participating in their students' learning. So differentiation can be the key to a lot of these kids learning, like English language learners, specifically in this case. But you just have to know your students. If these teachers didn't know about the importance of family and Latino culture, they wouldn't have been able to come up with a project like this. So here it talks about the project, and I chose to show a few books that are great for Latino culture. And when I say Latino culture, I don't just mean Mexican culture. I mean Mexican American, I mean Peruvian, Guatemalan, I mean Cuban, Puerto Rican. You have to know about your students. You have to know about their culture, about where they're from, in order to find correct literature. And a great resource to look at for finding great diverse literature is Pura Belpre, and books that have won the Pura Belpre award are usually appropriate for diverse literature instruction. Another thing I mentioned in my inquiry was the gifted and talented learners, who are sometimes not thought of when the term differentiated instruction is mentioned. And not just the gifted, but also the twice and even the thrice exceptional. So sometimes gifted learners become disengaged and lose interest in learning because their instruction is not being differentiated. There is no challenge there for them, and that's something that we all need to consider. I'm currently getting my secondary endorsement in gifted and talented education, and one of the biggest fears that teachers have is that they're not challenging these students enough, but there are so many resources out there that can help teachers plan some challenging activities and instruction for gifted learners. Another thing discussed is the twice or the thrice exceptional. You can have a gifted learner that is an English language learner, but gifted and talented in another subject. So you have to always differentiate accordingly to whichever need the student must have. And teachers must also consider that there are many interactions that can exist within and across each of the categories of diversity that students are classified under. So here is a little graphic just to show you how to differentiate. And in conclusion, there are various reasons for differentiated instruction in every subject. However, differentiated instruction of literacy is key for learning everything else in the classroom. Like I said, children's literature must also serve the purpose of being a window for children, a kind of mirror for them to reflect on. If they see literature that reflects their lives, their cultures, they're more likely to participate and more likely to be engaged.